Now coming up to the mound, please welcome BaseLINE Newman.
Yeah, you pitched that ball.
How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to the BaseLINE podcast. I'm your host, BaseLINE Newman. Now, guys, obviously we are not in our normal studio today. If you did not see my travel vlog from a few weeks back, we moved to Utah. So now this is going to be the setup from here on out, so get ready for that. Now, guys, I met this guy back in 2021 when I was interning with the Kalamazoo Growlers, and he was on the team as a pitcher. He just wrapped up his sophomore season at UCF, University of Central Florida. Please welcome my special guest, Nolan Lepkoske. Nolan, how you doing today?
Hey Ben, how you doing?
I'm doing great. So, Nolan, just to start things off, how did the season go overall?
I think the season went great. We obviously didn't do as great as a team as we probably would have liked, but in terms of personal development, I feel like I really made strides that summer with the Growlers.
Good. And, kind of going off of that with your season with UCF this year, kind of dive a little deeper and talk about the highs and lows of the season.
So my season last year with UCF actually got cut pretty short. I tore my pec on Labor Day, actually just getting back from Kalamazoo. So I spent the whole year rehab and actually just getting back on the mound now.
Kind of going off of that, any kind of injury like that can be really tough. Kind of talk about that therapy just to kind of get back in the groove of things and try to get back to the mound as fast as possible.
So it was, I was particularly blessed, I guess you could say, in the fact that I had tore my UCL my freshman year. So I already had one rehab under my belt and knew what it felt like to get all the way back to full health from an injury. And we were definitely pretty aggressive with it. We were trying to, there was a small window where I could have gotten back and made it back for the back half of the season. And we ended up missing it by a little bit. So we slowed down and just took the rehab out to the full 12 months that it's supposed to be.
No, that's fair. I mean, obviously you never want to rush getting back from an injury because obviously there can be more complications. So that's good that you were able to get that full 12 months. Kind of diving into your history with the sport, when did you start playing baseball?
So I started playing baseball back when I was 7 or 8, I'd say.
And what was it about baseball that you enjoyed so much?
I think it was just a lot from my pops. He had played in college as well and kind of taught me the game growing up. And he never played football or anything else really. So it was kind of just something we could do together.
Yeah, absolutely. And, talk a little bit deeper about that. I mean, you grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, which I love because it's, 30 minutes outside of my favorite city, St. Augustine. So kind of talk about your childhood a little bit deeper and kind of how your childhood played into your love of baseball.
So I think a lot of it was just the grind. Like my dad had already instilled in me, like nothing that comes easy is worth anything. And I feel like I related to that a lot in terms of just my whole baseball story. Like I was never really like a big prospect or anything like that. Like didn't have great stuff, really anything like extraordinary up until towards the very end of my junior year of high school. Like I was a 6'5", 220 pounder that was throwing 80 miles an hour for 3 years. And it was one of those like, all right, like this probably isn't going to be the thing for me, I guess. But I actually made my way over to the Florida Baseball Ranch, which is when I went there, it's now the Florida Baseball Armory. But got on a throwing program with them, packed on another 20 pounds, and it just really helped me figure out how to throw a baseball hard and hone in my command. And they really took my career to the next level, I believe.
No, that's great. It's really fun to see kind of that development, just slowly and slowly, year by year, getting better and better. Now, going off of that, when did you decide that you wanted to be a pitcher over, let's just say, kind of a normal fielder?
So I'd say that actually wasn't so much my choice as it was my sub 100 batting averages.
Okay. Awesome. Talk about your high school career a little bit. I mean, you mentioned a little bit that, your junior year was a really significant year, but kind of talk about how your experience on your high school team helped kind of prepare you to play college ball.
I'd say just in terms of the just doing it every day. Like obviously, you get the summer balls and whatnot, but just especially so I played at Mandarin High School and we had Coach Stewart was our skipper, and he had us out there like working hard every day, like really got a good. We thought it was a lot then because we were hearing all of our other friends at different high schools like talking about how easy it was and like how little they did. But our guy worked us, and I think that was good in terms of whenever I did get to college, it wasn't like a oh my god, like what's going on, like we're out here every day, like for the majority of the day, like I feel like we're getting buried, like never experienced anything like that.
Kind of going off of that, you were a 3-year letterman at Mandarin High School, and along with that, you were also a 1010XL scholar athlete. What does that exactly mean to be a 1010XL scholar athlete?
So that's someone who is excelling on the field and in the classroom. That's something that I've always thought is super important. Not a guy that's going to sit here and be like baseball's everything. If baseball doesn't work out, like, well, and I'll just go get a maintenance job somewhere. Like, I not to discredit any of that, but it's one of those like I want to be able to have a good profession post baseball and want to make sure that I have the foundation for that. So I've always put in a ton of work in the classroom as well.
Going off of that as well, at UCF, you are I believe it was a sports and exercise science major, if I'm correct.
That's correct.
So, kind of talk about that career and kind of what you want to do if baseball doesn't work out. What kind of career do you want with that major?
Yeah, so I finished that up last year and kind of had a little bit of a shift of heart. Realized like there wasn't as much. The ceiling was a little bit lower than I would have liked in terms of professions. It was pretty much strength coach or nothing. And so now I'm actually in a Master's of Health Administration program, just really hoping to get into the business side of hospitals.
Oh, very cool. What made you choose to go to UCF over other potential schools?
I think it was the stick to itiveness of UCF. Like I said, my freshman sophomore year of high school like wasn't anything special, just out there flipping in mediocre stuff. But I had a frame on me, and the recruiting coordinators over at UCF always they were really the only ones like talking to me early on then. And so whenever it did come time that I filled that frame out, it just felt like all right, like these guys have been hanging around me since before I was good. Like I feel like it's a place where I'd definitely be appreciated.
Yeah, for sure. And I do have to ask. I don't know. A lot of athletes, from different sports, kind of have that connection with each other. Just having that same grind, or just kind of relating on that kind of level. So I gotta ask, when he was at UCF, were you ever friends with Taco Fall?
So I have just a great story. So my first day on campus, this is summer 2018. I had shown up with a hamstring issue, and our training staff wasn't in for the summer, but basketball's was. So I got sent over to the training room that basketball uses, and I walk in there. I'm 18, first day on a college campus. Go in, sit on the training table. Taco falls on the table, like 2 tables over, and so I sit down. I got my shoes on and everything. Trainer walks out through the doors, and he looks at me, yells at me about having my shoes on, like calls me a freshman, like all that stuff. So I pop the shoes off, and Taco Fall looks over at me, and he goes, in this deep voice, he goes, "You're a freshman?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "You a big ass motherfucker." And it killed me. I'm looking up at him. I'm like, dude, you're a foot and a half taller than me. Like, what are you talking about?
I say you're 6'5", and he makes you look short.
Oh my God, I know. But yeah, that was just hilarious. Day one, having to have that happen.
That's a great story. Oh my gosh. Now, no, I'm kind of transitioning from that, as a pitcher, you don't really get to bat anymore. Like you said, you did have some subpar batting averages in high school. So, when was the last time you actually went up to the plate and batted in a game?
Oh, this is my senior night in high school.
Wow. So, 2017.
Yeah, 5 years ago.
Yeah, wow. That's crazy.
I rolled over to the shortstop.
Now, what kind of pitches are in your arsenal, and which pitch would you say is your best?
So I throw a fastball, splitter, and a slider, and I'd have to say my fastball is probably my most effective pitch.
Yeah, I mean, seeing it from the Growlers, and we'll get into that, a little bit later. But I would probably agree as well. Now, on the flip side of that, which one would you say is the one that you're weakest at, or at least one that you'd like to improve on?
Oh, the splitter without a doubt. It's such a tough one. I tore my UCL throwing a changeup, and so I've always been a little domed up about throwing a changeup again. But I wanted something similar, so I started throwing a splitter and just really getting it not to pop out of your fingers, trying to throw it hard. Like it's a tough one to throw for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've tried to throw a splitter. You need you need some pretty big hands to throw it, and I don't, so I've always struggled to throw it. But now, there are many different types of pitchers that a pitcher can throw. What is at least one pitch that you've always wanted to learn?
Oh man, really any sort of the secondary fastballs like sinkers or cutters. I feel like that's always a great weapon to have. Just never really put any time into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've always wanted to throw a knuckleball, but it's obviously one of the harder ones to throw for sure.
Yep, absolutely.
Nolan, one thing that I always found crazy is, overall how different people can look. I mean, I'm actually somehow like exactly a month older than you, and you look like you could be 30. I look like I could be 16. But one thing that has stood out in your appearance, and it's even in your player bio on UCF's website, is that you have a killer beard. When did you start growing it, and how long did it take to get it to the length it is now?
So I started growing this beard back when I was 16, and I couldn't even tell you. I've kept it about this length for quite a few years now. So I'd probably put it somewhere around maybe a year and a half.
What goes into, I guess, like the grooming process of having something like that?
So I use a company called the Beard Struggle. It's a great company. I reached out to them for an NIL deal. They didn't respond, so maybe they'll hear this. But yeah, they have a great beard shampoo and conditioner. They got balms and oils for both like nighttime and daytime to put into it, just to really make sure that the hair's staying healthy.
What was it called again?
The Beard Struggle.
The beard struggle. All right, the beard struggle. This video is for you. I am sending it to you so we can get Nolan here a sponsorship. Nolan, like we mentioned earlier, in 2021, you played for the Kalamazoo Growlers, and that's where we met. Can you kind of talk about that experience playing for the Growlers and for the Northwoods League as well?
It was unbelievable. I going up there, I heard the horror stories, obviously, of oh my god, it's every day, uh, long rides, all that stuff. But I had nothing but a blast. I thought the Growlers specifically, with Brian, just their whole culture there, the fun, like it was like a joy to go to the baseball field every day. And in terms of the travel, like I thought it was great. Like I thought getting to play every day was amazing. Getting to go on bus rides with your teammates and having fun, like it was just a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've had a few people that have either played or worked for the Growlers on this podcast, so I've asked them this question as well. But like you mentioned, Brian Copy does a great job at promoting these games and making it a fun experience. Their motto is where fun makes a difference. So I guess overall, how well do you think that the Growlers really do at promoting that slogan?
I think they kill it. I think between the hockey boards that they put up behind home plate, so you get the best view, to the short porches to make sure that there's plenty of long balls for the fans, all the graphics and in between inning events. Like I think they kill it.
Don't forget about the player dances that I'm sure you guys loved.
Oh, yep, the player dances too.
Now, Nolan, going off of that, in 2017, according to Perfect Game, your top speed was taken at 90 miles per hour. However, you've greatly increased that velocity and throwing speed since then. Because in 2021, when you were playing for the Growlers, I remember you pitching at 100 miles per hour at one point.
100 miles per hour.
Talk about that massive increase in speed and kind of what goes into being able to pitch the ball that fast.
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think my pitching guy at UCF, Nick Oddie, he's unbelievably smart. And he and I, the year before that, I've been struggling to get back from Tommy John. And we developed a plan of just struggling to think of the word right now, but it was just a way of building up that floor, so to speak. So just a combination of slowly building up, plus our weight guy, Jeremy Fraden, he's unbelievably smart as well. And he just sets up programs to put guys in really good spots to move the best that they can. And just a combination of their intelligence and programming and just honestly how hard I worked at it. I feel like I really crushed everything that they gave me, and I think it showed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it takes a lot of work to be able to throw a ball that fast. I mean, it's just absolutely nuts. I remember watching you pitching, and I would not have wanted to be any of those batters because honestly, I'd be pretty terrified if a 100-mile-per-hour ball came at me. But when pitching the ball that as fast as you do, it can be hard to kind of control where the ball goes. So I guess how do you go about kind of gaining that command when you throw the ball that fast?
I think it was a little bit of a catch-22 because I did have a decent hit by pitch rate up there in the Northwoods, but I think that played into my my Ks per nine as well. Because as bad as it might sound, like these batters were just never really comfortable like standing in there because somebody was liable to catch one in the ribs, and they just never knew when it was going to happen. But it happened now and again, and as much as I'd like to not do that, obviously don't want to hurt anybody, it does play into just keeping the batter uncomfortable in the box, keeping them guessing.
It's a mind game. You're terrifying them. Now, I mean, Nolan, when I was playing, I mean, I was somewhat of a pitcher too. I wasn't great, and I definitely couldn't throw as fast as you could. But being a pitcher is a very mental game. When you make a mistake on the mound, like hitting a batter, like walking a batter, it can be really frustrating. So how do you go about kind of shaking it off and not letting that get to your head?
Honestly, it was so actually my motto was always throw angry. So I just, anything like that, anything that was negative, I feel like kind of helped me in a way because it was less me having to manufacture that and more just letting it come natural and just using that adrenaline and honing it in and like being able to use that to block out external distractions.
That's actually interesting. I've never really thought about that way, kind of embracing the anger instead of letting it get to you.
Absolutely.
Now, Nolan, when you are on the mound pitching in a game, what goes through your head?
I like to keep it pretty simple. I got a couple of mechanical cues of just wanting to move as fast as I can towards the plate and just keeping my sights nice and low. But outside of that, it's pretty blank.
On the flip side, every baseball player needs a good walk-up song to not only get them in the zone, but kind of just to represent who they are as a player and who they are as a person. So, what would you say is your go-to walk-up song?
Go-to walk-up song is Motley Crue's Live Wire.
And why that?
I just like it. I like the fast-paced and the heavy metal of it. It's one of those. It's hard to find something where it's heavy metal, but it's got a good pace to it, and the lyrics aren't obnoxious. So it's just like a good overall. It's nice and fast-paced, and it's just something everybody knows and likes. Everybody loves Motley Crue.
You've played with a few players that have actually gotten drafted. Off the top of my head, I can't remember a lot of them, but one that does come to mind is Blake Dunn, that you played with in the Growlers. So kind of talk about the different players that you've played with that have gotten drafted and kind of how amazing that moment is to see your teammates, have that moment.
Oh, it's always great. And it's great to see how it's not football where it's okay, like all the 6'5", 280-pound guys are going and it's fun seeing like all the different body types and personalities, and just how baseball is truly non-discriminatory. And all my teammates, all the pitchers that I've seen get drafted that are power guys that throw hard, throw explosive breaking balls, all the pitchers I've seen get drafted that are command guys that can just dot their fastballs and drop in off speed pitches, and the guys that are big power hitters versus the more slappy, like fast guys. Like it's fun to watch the variety of guys that can go and how good they can be at their particular craft.
That's what I've always loved about baseball, is kind of that aspect that you've talked about, because, you know, you can have a player that's, you know, as big as Prince Fielder, but you can also have a player that's skinnier and smaller like Jose Altuve. So, you know, I've always loved that. Going off of that, this upcoming season will be your junior season, you know, coming off of injury. What are you looking forward to the most for the season?
Honestly, just the competition. Regardless of positive or negative outcomes, I'm just happy to get back on the mound and be competing again against another guy.
Nolan, just to kind of wrap things up, what is your ultimate goal in the sport of baseball?
It's changed a lot over the years. Obviously, it was to get drafted for a while. But now, being through everything that I've been through, it's kind of just to have fun, just win games at UCF and just really enjoy playing the game while I can.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Nolan, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, and I'm really excited to see you back on the mound for UCF.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. But let's go wrap it up for us today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the BaseLINE podcast. Thank you so much to Nolan Lepkoske for coming on and talking about his baseball career, his wicked arm, and of course, his luscious beard. Is this your first episode of the BaseLINE podcast? Well, make sure to like and subscribe down below, as it really helps me out. And, you know, go check out my other videos as well, as I put a lot of work into these, and I just want to make great content for you guys. Along with that, if you enjoyed the music for this episode, go check out Hand Harmony. Link for them will be in the description below. With all that being said, guys, thank you again so much for tuning into this episode of the BaseLINE podcast. I'm your host, BaseLINE Newman, and we'll catch you guys next time.